Jesus, animated like Black Jesus. For that reason, he's still undefeated like Gorilla Hebrew from last season. The war machine running circles around our competition like track season. It's hard for you to be a stand-up guy, cause in the spirit world, your back leaning. I'm sick with it, got me throwing up. PowerPoint ready, ain't showing up. No information, just inflammation. Amazon book sales going up. But I wouldn't buy it, even if I was on a diet and had a little money on the side. I wouldn't try it, even if my life was on the line and they pointing at my body with the nine. Why should I tell them a whole bunch of lies just for them to join my side? El Shaddai, all praise to the Most High. If the Spirit walking with me, I'm fine. You cannot make a decision. I can see that you're afraid of the system. I can tell you have no faith in your vision. You'd rather sit back and hate on religion. I bet you won't walk in the government building and tell them that you want to interview. Tell them that your name is Nimrod and you demand justice and call them a criminal. Why not the literature right there in front of them? I guarantee you gon' make the news. At least you be finally famous. Look at the camera like, Mama, I made it. Have you ever stood in front of the very personification of hatred? I have a many occasions. The devil got multiple faces. Look at the swing of the pendulum. Look at the shape of the pentagon. Walk in the power of Pentecost. Show up and mess on your pentagram. Tanks on the ground, man. Too many tanks on the ground.
Shalom, shalom, family. This is Elder Jewry, giving all praises to the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, whose name we call Yahweh. We also want to give glory and honor to our ancestors for the sacrifices they have made. Also to Yeshua HaMashiach, Yahweh Shah, for the work that he has done in the atonement for us. And we are, something's running right here, but I think we're good right now, family. So again, we're going to come to you again with the actual, we did a preliminary last night. So now what we're going to do is in regards to the science of African jewelry, the science of Israel in Africa, right? And so we're going to continue that. This is going to be led by our SAR, or our General, Gideon Yisrael. He's going to be leading us. And so I'm going to turn it over to him. But first of all, claim your inheritance. Nazi claim, Nazi Devar's in the building. Shout out to you, Claim. What's going on, Doc?
Well, you don't have any choice, so you better choose wisely.
God. All right. So I'm going to turn it over to Gideon Yisrael, our SAR, our General. Shalom to you, Ak.
Shalom. What's going on, Aki? What's good, Claim? Tanks on the ground. Shout out to the Minister Howe.
Yeah, shalom
all the
to
other
you.
brothers. Yeah, shalom. What's good?
Come on. So we're going to get right into it. We know it's a little bit late in the hour, but I'm going to share the screen here. 1 second. Y'all let me know if y'all can see that.
Yeah,
We're
seems
talking
like
about the
we
science
good.
of African jewelry. All right.
Kind. Yeah, so like Elder Yahweh just said, we're gonna speak on the science of West African jewelry, but first we're gonna get into giving all praises to the Most High in the name of his son Yeshua HaMashiach. And what we're gonna do first is we're gonna take the Bible and we just gonna take it and place it on the side, because it says in those scriptures that the Most High, we must worship him, or must worship Yahweh in spirit and truth. So in so many words, this is the truth. So let's go. We can start with the slide, Elder. We can go to the next one. So like I say, this is basically the science of West African jewelry, or Africa in general. And that the claims that we are making is that we're saying that we of the Israelite extraction are the descendants of Jacob under the Israelite nation, and that we existed among other nations within Africa. And this tribal designation is only a modern diffusion of a greater national pedigree of times past. So, to make a statement as it relates to world history, we must engage in a critical study of human history, which is research description of humanity's past by archaeology, anthropology, genetics, linguistics, and recorded history. So, what we see here is the process of what someone would do if you're going by a methodology. You have and by definition it's the systematic theoretical analysis of the methods applied to a field of study. It comprises the theoretical analysis of the body of methods and principles associated with the branch of knowledge. So within that we have these fields. You have the anthropological, the linguistical, the historical, the archaeological, and the genetical. Go ahead, Yara, to the next one.
You see it?
Okay, Khan. I
All right.
said,
All right.
Khan. So what we're doing right here is we're basically establishing a fact. And we see here, to establish a fact, you're making secure or permanent in a certain place, condition, job, etc. So this etc. is the fact that the Israelites and the Yehudim, who are the ancient Jews, are a black people. So the point to be proven today is that the sons of Jacob and the subsequent indigenous citizens of Jerusalem were widely dispersed throughout all of Africa, and that they are what we call the sub-Saharan Negro type. Khan, to the next one, please. So in establishing in fact, we're going to go to some sources. Now, the first source I'm going to go to is a person by the name of Cornelia Tacitus. He was born 55 AD to 117 AD. So in his histories, he says this. He says, the Jews are said to have been refugees from the island of Crete who settled in the remotest corner of Libya in the days when, according to the story, Saturn was driven from his throne by the aggression of Jupiter. Note, this is a deduction from the name Yehudi by which they became known. The word is to be regarded as a barbarous lengthening of Idi, the name of the people dwelling around the famous Mount Ida in Crete. A few authorities hold that in the reign of Isis, the surplus population of Egypt was evacuated to neighboring lands under the leadership of Heroshalimus and Judas. Note, many assure us that the Jews are descended from those Ethiopians who were driven by fear and hatred to immigrate from their home country when Cephas was king. Note, there are some who say that a motley collection of landless Assyrians occupied a part of Egypt and then built cities of their own, inhabiting the lands of the Hebrews and the nearer parts of Syria. Others again find the famous ancestry for the Jews in the Solymi, who are mentioned with respect in the epics of Homer. Note, this tribe is supposed to have founded Jerusalem and named it after themselves. Yara, are you there? I I won't stay here. I just wanna establish some things if I can real fast. So what we see here, because I when somebody answers against this, I need them to be specific. So this source right here is saying that basically the Jews are a black people, and not only because it's saying they descend from the Ethiopians, but every people that they see mentioned here are a so-called black people. Your most well-learned scholars will tell you that the island of Crete, so-called black people. The remotest corner of Libya, that's where they say they settle. Let's see who else they have. They have barbarous. And when we see the word barbarous, that's not so much as ignorant. That just means outside the realm of Hellenistic or Roman ways, ideals, and being a citizen of that land. So we see they say they come from Mount Ida in Crete again. The other part, surplus population of Egypt. And what we must look at when we're looking at world history is that the story is basically the same. You have a mass exodus of people out of the land of Egypt. So they say this surplus population of Egypt who were black people, and we're gonna get to the detractors of this. We're gonna get to this. So they say those people left basically and went to I guess that part I unfortunately have out, but you can read it.
Okay.
All of these people are
Um,
so-called of the African extraction. Go ahead.
to the next slide. There it is.
Yeah. Okay. Now this one here is Strabo, and we're gonna go to him real fast. And what he says is this: the western extremities of Judea towards Cases are occupied by Idumeans, and by the lake, the Idumeans and Nabateans. When driven from their country by sedition, they passed over to the Jews and adopted their customs. The greater part of the country along the coast to Jerusalem is occupied by Lake Serbonis and by the tract continuous to it. For Jerusalem is near the sea, which, as we have said, may have been seen from the arsenal of Joppa. These districts lie towards the north. They are inhabited generally, and each place in particular, by mixed tribes of Egyptians, Arabians, and Phoenicians. Of this description are the inhabitants of Galilee, of the plain of Jericho, and of the territories of Philadelphia and Samaria, surnamed Shabazz by Herod. Now, okay, but although there is such a mixture of inhabitants, the report most credited among many things believed respecting the temple and the inhabitants of Jerusalem is that the Egyptians were the ancestor of the present Jews. Now let's break this down real fast before we go, Elder. So we see Strabo is writing this in basically first century or 0th century BC, however you want to term that, 64 BC. So at that time, look at what he's saying, because people will say, okay, bam, they're Egyptians, Arabians, Phoenicians, and they're going to throw all type of people in that. No, contemporary of his time, that was the people in that area. But listen to what he says. He says, look, go to the bottom. The report most credited among many things believed respecting the temple and the inhabitants of Jerusalem is that the Egyptians were the ancestors. You see, like that's the stock. That's who he says the stock is, the ancestors of the Jews. Go ahead, Yara, please. Thank you. Now here we have Benjamin of Tudela. Now he says this. He says they worship the sun and they have high places everywhere outside the city at a distance of about half a mile. And every morning they run forth to greet the sun. For on every high place a solar disk is made of cunning workmanship. And as the sun rises, the disk rotates with thundering noise. And all, both men and women, offer incense to the sun with censers in their hands. Such are their Such are their superstitious practices. And throughout the island, including all the towns there, live several thousand Israelites. The inhabitants are all black, and the Jews also, the latter good and benevolent. So when we see the latter, it's talking about here. So it says black and Jews. So they're separating the Jews when they say latter as far as being the good and benevolent, but they're saying they're still black. They know the law of Moses and the prophets, and to a small extent, the Talmud and Halakha. So that's him writing in the 12th century. Next slide.
Powerful.
So we see in establishing the fact, the point to be proven today is that the sons of Jacob and his and the subsequent indigenous citizens of Jerusalem were widely dispersed throughout all Africa, and that they are what we call the sub-Saharan Negro type. So the first point was established. The Israelites and the Yahadim are a black people from three sources spanning from the 1st century BC all the way to the 12th century AD. They were a black people from their beginning ancestry, whether you want to call it an eponymous ancestor, whatever, however you look at how we look at our scriptures. But the fact remains they were black then, and all the way to 12th century AD, they were documented still as a black people. Next slide. Con. Now, the next point to be established is that the Israelites and the Yahadim were widely dispersed throughout all Africa. Next slide. Now we're gonna do a little reading right here. So excuse me, if I chop it up a little bit. But like I said, when we're gonna go to this, it's all about proving the point that the Israelites, who are already proven to be black, were widely dispersed throughout all Africa, and that they are what we call the sub-Saharan Negro type. So whenever we get to this next slide, we're gonna see how we're gonna establish that point. And I want to thank the elder for coming on and assisting me. Shout out to the brother Claim, tanks on the ground. So brother Yara, let's get it going. I guess he had dropped out right quick. We kind of started late. Been having some technical difficulties.
No, I think YouTube was glitching real bad.
But YouTube bad. I'm back.
We good.
Yeah.
Okay, he wants to start the conversation.
What's up, General?
Shalom, family.
Shalom.
So I
there
think
we
we're
go.
on number 9. Yeah, there we go.
There we go.
Salaki. So what we have here is human history and world history. Those are, according to the way they break sciences down today, it's two different things. So human history, or the history of humanity, also known as the history of the world, is the carefully researched description of humanity's past. It is informed by archaeology, anthropology, genetics, linguistics, and other disciplines, and for periods since the invention of writing, which we as Israelites is the beginning of man. So, but for periods since the invention of writing, by recorded history and by secondary sources and studies. Now, world history or global history as a field of historical study examines history from a global perspective. Like I said, centuries ago, these the people that so-called studied it and broke it down like that. What we look at is how we have the scriptures, like our history, it would never lie. Like they never knew the Hittites existed. We knew that. So like it's nothing new to the scriptures. Next slide. With that being said, we gonna look at something I look at it's like 80%, right? Because a lot of people, when they have their arguments, they only come with one argument, one witness, but when you have 4 out of 5 witnesses, it's pretty much bad. So the point of the demonstration is to understand building proper methodology when forming conclusions based in part to this simple mathematical principle. So what I'm gonna do is show by the laws of witnesses culminated from each discipline, not just one, that the overwhelming majority of a world history speaks to a so-called Black Israelite and Jewish presence in West Africa, specifically tonight in the East-West migration, because it's also like a northwest, it's several different ones. But what we must do is to establish that the Israelites or Jews of Canaan were a Black people. And to establish that fact, we will go to the earliest attested account of their color, then proceed to show that the black presence in Africa, specifically tonight in the East-West migration. Now, I should have put that a little earlier, but I just threw that one in there. Well, I just basically, but anyway. So before we go into this, I want to basically explain what the Hermetic hypothesis, what it is, and I think I came across it earlier, but it's of not important. It's not important because I'm about to explain it. So next slide, please. So the Hermetic hypothesis is Origin and Functions in Time Perspective by Edith R. Sanders. The Hermetic hypothesis is well known to students of Africa. It states that everything of value ever found in Africa was brought there by the Hamites. Cool. Allegedly a branch of the Caucasian race. Not cool. I mention this because when looked at in its totality, those that argue against not being in Africa or that the Jews being in Africa are white, or when presented with the evidence to the contrary, are conclusively promoted and perpetuating the Hermetic hypothesis. You see, so like that's basically what they're saying. When if you have a person come up to you and say some stuff like they from the mountains of Turkey and not framing it right, don't that's not even that's the Hermetic hypothesis, basically. Next slide, please. So this is the second point to be established, basically. Now, to establish the evidence of this position, I would start with the B'nai Yisrael, or Jews in Ethiopia. It is a well-known fact from the two sources provided that the B'nai Yisrael are a native indigenous presence in Ethiopia from the beginning of the written record, which according to our text is the beginning of man himself. Now, with that being said, like I just stated, we all, whether we Kemetic, West African, Jewish scholar, Ashkenazi Jewish scholar, whatever, we all know and acknowledge that presence of the Yahudim in Ethiopia. The only problem is that the disconnect from the people in that nation in East Africa with those in West. So the what we have here, let's see. The renowned Aksumite Empire of Ethiopia is a well-known and acknowledged people of Israelite descent. From the Ashkenazi conscious community, scholars, the whole nine, this is a recognized fact. What is not notable or as revealed is the facts behind the creation of the Aksumite Empire and its relation to the establishment of dispersed Israelite nation states, starting in Chad, ending to the furthest extremities in West Africa. So we all wonder how this happened, or those who don't know ask, how did this happen? Next slide.
All right, give me a second. Not make sure nobody in the background here.
So here we basically see this is the split of the United Israelite Kingdom of Ethiopia. Here we have to the left the kingdom of what they call Simeon. It's basically from the 10th century documented to 17th century. And to the right, this is the well-known kingdom of Axum, converted to Christianity, Philastia Jews. We all know, that history, like I said. Next slide.
How's our audio, fam? Can we be heard?
Yeah, we good. We
Okay.
good. Yeah, we just waiting.
All right. There you go.
All right. Next slide. All right. So what we have here, let's see. This is travels to discover the source of the Nile. Now, in this is basically explaining the situation and the story that happened. Let's see what we have here. I'm gonna start at the second paragraph, right? Uh, they acquired the language very speedily, and as that country is naturally inclined to admire strangers, they were soon looked upon as two prodigies. Jufis, probably the dullest of the two, was set over the king's household and wardrobe, a place that has been filled with constantly by a stranger of that nation to this very day. So it's basically saying these two strangers who the Ethiopians say came and gave them Christianity, they was placed over his wardrobe, and that's the custom that they had. They're basically saying that was a stranger's position. Frumentus was judged worthy by the queen, which is the queen of Ethiopia, to have the care of the young prince's education, to which he dedicated himself entirely. Now this is the second part. After having introduced his pupil in all sorts of learning, he strongly impressed him with a love and veneration for the Christian religion, after which he himself set out for Alexandria, where, as has been already said, he found St. Thomas Cathedral or whatever, newly elected to that see, which is the Catholic, seat. He related to him briefly what had passed in Ethiopia and the great hopes of the conversion of that nation if proper pastors were sent to instruct them. Athenius embraced the opportunity with all the cardinals that became his station. Next slide.
Nope, it's not frozen. It fell off. Gideon fell off.
Yeah, he fell off. All right, we're gonna wait. We'll wait for him to come back in. But family, we continuing on. Let's see here. He's talking about. So what we're saying, we were just gonna wait for Art to come back in. So can we be heard? Somebody put a 1 in the chat. It seems like StreamYard is having strong difficulties tonight. Yeah, strong difficulties tonight. Okay, good. I think we got some that. But we were talking about West Africa, the presence of Black Israelites in West Africa. We did a preliminary on yesterday, and this is the lesson that we'll be waiting for Gideon to bring out. So he fell out, so hopefully he can jump back in and we can get this thing back going because he's bringing out some very powerful information. Here he is. How's your sound out?
You good. You good.
All right, let's get it.
So yeah, let me just see where we left off at. All praise to the Most High. You hear me?
All praise to the Most High.
So, yeah, I think I'm at number 13.
Okay. I think that's 13 right there, right?
I'm not seeing anything.
Oh, you're not seeing anything? Okay, so you were travels to discover the source of the Nile in the years 1768, 1769 through 1773.
No, it's basically the split of the United Israelite Kingdom of Ethiopia. Is that slide right there?
That slide right there? Okay.
Yeah. But I'm still, like I said, I'm not seeing anything.
You're not seeing anything? Hold on, let me see. Let me go out. I got it. See it now?
Yeah, you good.
All right. That's it? You good?
Yeah. Let me see. Let me get it. All right. Yeah, I'm ready. So next slide.
Okay.
Salaki. All right, so we see here, this is travels to discover the source of the Nile in the years 1768, 1769, so forth, so on, by James Bruce. Let's see if I can see what that say for y'all. We'll put it up.
Let me know if you want me to read it because I can see it pretty decent on here.
Yeah.
Okay. You want me to read the entire block, page 503?
Yeah, that block, right.
Okay, I'll read it. There are 4 very interesting events in the course of the reign of these princesses.
Right.
The first and greatest we have already mentioned, the birth of Christ in the 8th year of Bazan. The second is the conversion of Abyssinia to Christianity in the reign of Abria and Etzebeah in the year of Christ 333, according to our account. The third, the war with the Jews under Caleb. The fourth, the massacre of the princes on the mountain of Damo. The time and circumstances of all these are well known, and I shall relate them in their turn with the brevity becoming a historian, page 503.
Con. So what we see here with what is being talked about is that the 4 things that happen and one of those things being the conversion of the Abyssinians to Christianity. And we see that it started at the mountains of Damu or Damat, and we hear a lot of people throw that word around. And I'm gonna come back to that paradigm of people throwing around words and terms, and they're not bringing no evidence. So this is documented evidence talking about Damat or Damu, how you want to speak about it, in Ethiopia. And you go to next slide, please. Now, I think I can read this one.
Okay.
Let's see. All right, yeah, I can read this one. A Greek by the name and by religion had taken a passage in a ship on the Red Sea tip, India, and had with him two young men, Frumentus and Glucidius. Now, these are the two men we keep hearing about. Those are those two Greeks who came and gave the Ethiopians their religion, or their Roman Catholic religion, whom he intended to bring up to trade. And having given them a very liberal education, it happened their vessel was cast away on a rock upon the coast of Abyssinia. So I'm gonna go down. Though young, they soon began to show the advantages attending a liberal education. They acquired the language speedily, and as that country is naturally inclined to admire strangers, these were soon looked upon as two prodigies. Evanphus, probably the dullest of the two, was set over the king's household, as we read earlier. So we go to that last paragraph because we went over this earlier in proving an earlier point. So it says, he related to him briefly what had passed in Ethiopia and the great hopes of the conversion of that nation if proper pastors were sent to instruct them. Athenius embraced that opportunity with all the cardinals that became his station. Next slide. You can you see that?
Yeah, I think I can.
I think I got it now. I just didn't know it. I ain't lost it. Excuse me, everybody. Let me just. All right. And protection. He ordained Frumentus bishop of that country, who instantly returned and found the young king, his pupil, in the same good disposition as formerly. He embraced Christianity. The greatest part of Abyssinia followed his example, and the Church of Ethiopia continued with this bishop in perfect unity and friendship till his death. And though great troubles arose from heresies being propagated in the East, that church and the fountain where it derives its faith, Alexandria, remain uncontaminated by any false doctrine. So basically, they still got caught in the trick bag. They see all these heresies from people corrupting the covenant that was brought here by the Mashiach. They see it, and it's evident, that so basically they continue to say that they haven't failed because their true fate is in Alexandria, but they still falling for it. So I'm gonna continue with the second paragraph. But it was not long after this that Aurelian broke out under Constantine the emperor and was strongly favored by him. We have indeed a letter of Saint Athenius to that emperor, who had applied to him to dispose Frumentus from his position, for refusing to embrace that heresy or admit its to his to his diocese. Let me see if I can enlarge it just a little more. All right, here we go. All right, now see it. Last paragraph. It should seem that this conversion of Abyssinia was quietly conducted and without blood, and this is the more remarkable that it was the second radical change of religion effected in the same manner and with the same facility and moderation. No fanatic preachers, no warm saints or madmen, ambitious to make or to be made martyrs, disturbed either of these happy events.
Shalom, family.
And this wife, yeah, can I be heard?
Yeah, you good.
All right, come. In this wife, though barbarous, no, in this wise, though barbarous nation, so as to involve them in bloodshed, no persecution was the consequence of this difference of tenets, and if wars did follow, it was from matters merely temporal. So next slide. Salaki, everybody. Khan. So here we see that this dynasty, the kingdom of Simeon, was a dynasty that resisted the conversion and ruled from the Simeon mountains. These were Ethiopian kings and privileged descendants of Zadok, who was a high priest during the reign of King David and King Solomon. According to the tradition of Beta Israel, Zadok's son Azariah was sent to Ethiopia together with Menelik. Next slide. I'm just gonna take a little break right quick while Brother Yara come and continue with the presentation. But shalom to everybody out there that's listening or just tuned in. What we're basically going over is the science of West African Jewry, or science of African Jewry in general, or rather West African Jewry specifically. And we're just coming with a little bit of information for y'all. We could have made this 1,000 slides, but we just got it to about 39, 40 slides for everybody. But shalom to everybody listening. All praise to the Most High.
Ready for the next slide?
Yeah.
Okay. There we go.
All right. So here we're going to continue reading. It says, an independent sovereignty in one family of Jews had always been preserved on the mountain of Saman, and the royal residence was upon a high pointed rock called the Jews' Rock. Several other inaccessible mountains served as natural fortresses for this people, now grown very confident or comfortable or considerable by frequent accessions of strength from Palestine and Arabia, whence the Jews had been expelled. Gideon and Judith were then king and queen of the Jews, and their daughter Judith, whom in Hamatic they call Esther, and sometimes Sonoit, i.e., fire, was a woman of great beauty and talents for intrigue, had been married to the governor of a small district called Bunga in the neighborhood of Lhasa, both which countries were likewise much infected with Yuhadim. Next slide. Time. Give me 1 second. Anybody out there listening, if one of y'all brothers want to read that right quick, I just need 1 minute.
Okay. You want me to start from the top? I
Yeah.
got it. Okay. It says about the year 960, an attempt was made by this family to mount the throne of Abyssinia, as we shall see hereafter, when the princes of the house of Solomon were nearly, Were nearly extirpated upon the rock Damo. This is the probable. What is that? This is the probable process produce more animosity and bloodshed. At last, the power of the Falasha was so much weakened that they were obligated to leave. Then it says verses, travels to discover. Leave that flat country of Dimbia, having no cavalry to maintain themselves there, and to take possession of the rugged and almost inaccessible rocks in that high ridge called the mountain of Summit. One of these which nature seems to have formed for a fortress. They chose for their metropolis, and it was ever all called the Jews' Rock.
Con. Yeah, I'm back now. Appreciate that. So yeah, here we see basically the story of where it's splitting, where this one family of the Israelites are splitting from the ruling family. So next slide, please. All right. So the source we're going to go to now is from History of the Patriarchs of Alexandria, written in the time basically 9th century to 10th century. It's basically the history of the successions of the patriarchs in Alexandria, Egypt. So it says, in his days, the king of Abyssinia sent to the king of Nubia a youth whose name was George, and made known to him how the Lord had chastised him, he and the inhabitants of his land. It was that a woman, a queen of Bani al Hamya, had revolted against him and against his country. She took captive from it many people and burned many cities and destroyed churches and drove him, the king, from place to place. That which befell him was retribution for what the king who was before him had done to the metropolitan in the days of the father Abakasmas, as we have explained earlier, through his falsification and his fraud. He, the king, said to him, George, in the letter which he sent him, I desire that you should help me and partake with me in the fatigue for the sake of Yah and for the sake of the unity of the faith, and that you should write a letter on your part to the father, the patriarch, talking about in Egypt and Mizraim, to beg him to absolve us and to absolve our lands, and to pray for us that Yah or God may remove from us and from our country this trial, and may grant to us that he, the patriarch, may consecrate for us a metropolitan, as was the custom of our fathers, and that he may pray for us, and God may remove his wrath from us. I have mentioned this to you, O brother, for fear lest the Christian religion pass away and cease among us. For lo, 6 patriarchs have sat on the throne, speaking of the seat in Alexandria, and have not paled. So I stop right there. So basically, we see in this history from the patriarch in Rome perspective is basically repeating what Yara just read earlier, but he's from a more distant perspective. He sent George, who instructed the king of Abyssinia and told the king of Abyssinia that, the reason why, you Israelites are going through is because, you basically are Israelites. You need to basically come to this Christian faith, this Roman Catholic faith, and we all be good or whatever. So if you can, Elder, go to the next slide, please.
There we go.
right, kind. Let me just go to it myself, and I'm gonna continue with it. So this is the continuation from earlier, that same source, and I'm gonna continue. It says, as we are about to take our leave of the Jewish religion and governments in the land of Sukkum, it is here the proper place that I should add what we have to say of the Falafa or Falasha, of whom we have already had occasion to speak when we had gave a specimen of their language among those of the stranger nations, whom we imagine to have come originally from Palestine. I did not spare my utmost pains in inquiring into the history of this curious people. Now, remember, this is a European writing, and lived in friendship. So let me start over. I did not spare my utmost pains in inquiring into the history of this curious people, and lived in friendship with several, esteemed the most knowledge and learned among them. And I am persuaded, as far as they knew, they told me the truth. The account they give of them, or the account they give of themselves, which is supported only by tradition among them, is that they come with Menelik from Jerusalem, so that they agree perfectly with the Abyssinians. So he's talking about two different people in the story of the Queen of Saba, who they say was a Jew, and her nation Jews before the time of Solomon. And remember, Elder, when you were speaking about uh some tribe, or Olu Equianu, saying his people had those customs before the time of Moses.
Okay.
So he says, and her nation Jews before the time of Solomon, that lived at Saba or Azaba, the myrrh and frankincense country upon the Arabian Gulf. They say furthermore that she went to Jerusalem under procession at Haram, and it's basically speaking of the Queen of Sheba, but I want to get more down. It says, the second paragraph, they agree also in every particular with the Abyssinians about the remaining part of the story. She birthed Menelik, who was their first king, also the coming of Azarus, and I want to get to the part of the contention. Okay. The coming of Azarus and 12 elders from the 12 tribes, their doctors of the law, whose posterity they deny to have ever apostated to Christianity. So he's saying they never apostated, and he's saying these Israelites are telling him they never apostated to Christianity, as the Abyssinians proceed they did at the conversion. They say that when the trade of the Red Sea fell into the hands of strangers, and all communication was fixed up between them and Jerusalem, the cities were abandoned, and the inhabitants relinquished the and they were the inhabitants of those cities. You go to the next slide out. Let's see if I can read this. Let's see. Yeah, it's a little better. So I'm gonna go to the second paragraph, page 485. Being very industrious, these people multiplied, let's see, exceedingly, and were very powerful at the time of the conversion to Christianity, or as they term it, the apostasy, under these two people again. At this time, they declare a prince of the tribe of Judah and of the race of Solomon and Menelik to be their sovereign. The name of this prince was Phinehas, who refused to abandon the religion of his forefathers, and from him their sovereigns are linearly descended. So they have still a prince of the house of Judah, although the Abyssinians, by way of reproach, have called this family Bethrael. intimating that they were rebels and revolted from the family of Solomon and the tribe of Judah. And there is little doubt. Let me see. Go down. And there is little doubt that some of the successors of Uzziah adhered to their ancient faith also. Although there was no bloodshed upon difference of religion, yet each having a distinct king with fame and pretensions, many battles were fought from motives of ambition and rivalship of sovereign power. About the year 960, an attempt was made by this family to mount the throne of Abyssinia, as we shall see hereafter, when the princes of the house of Solomon were nearly excruciated on the rock Domo. This is probable preceded more animosity and bloodshed. So we see here that this is the beef that's basically going on. And if we can, we go to the next slide. All right, Con. You go to the second part. A great overthrow, which they received in the year 1600, brought them to the very brink of ruin. In that battle, Gideon and Judith, their king and queen, were slain. They have since adopted a more peaceable and dutiful behavior, pay taxes, and are suffered to enjoy their own government. Their king and queen's name was again Gideon and Judith. When I was in Abyssinia, and these names seem to be preferred for those of the royal family. At that time, they were supposed to amount to 100,000 effective men. Something like this, the sober and most knowing Abyssinians are obliged to allow to be the truth. But the circumstances of the conversion from Judaism are probably not all before us. So here we see, basically, that's basically the beef. And that is the beginning of the division of the Israelites basically in Ethiopia that started this east-west migration. So we're going to leave that and we're going to go to the next slide if we can. So this is basically the results of these migrations. We see the Yabir. The Yabir people, also referred to as Yibber, Yeber, or Yahar, are a caste within Somali. They have traditionally been in Dogmanis, and their hereditary occupation has been as magicians, leather work, dispensing traditional medicine, and making amulets. They belong to the Saab clan and sometimes referred to as a minority clan. They perform menial tasks in Somali communities and are considered an outcast. The Somali tradition holds that the Yabar are descendants of Muhammad Hanif of Hagarasa. Muhammad Hanif had a reputation as a pagan magician, according to the Somali folklore. He was defeated by Yusuf bin Ahmad el Kamin. According to this myth, the rest of the Somali society has ever since paid a small gift to a Yabir after childbirth as a form of blood compensation. The Yabir have a language of Somali that they keep secret from the ruling Somali clans. Although Muslims and ethnically similar to other Somalis, the Yabir caste have been traditionally denigrated, demeaned, discriminated against by higher society and social strata of Somali. So we see this is an article right here by a person by the name of Ian Fisher, Dubadi Journal, Somali. Yeah. We see here, this is Dubadi Journal, Somali, Hebrew, see a better day. If we can we go to the next slide? Khan. The Yabir. During the later half of the 20th century, Somalia suffered from famine, national wars, civil wars, life under warlords, and a complete lack of infrastructure. Although all Somalis had learned to survive troublesome circumstances, they are likely no greater survivors than the people from the Yabir tribe, who are a mysterious outcast clan in a failed state. In predominantly Muslim Somalia, the other tribes and clans have despised the Yabir because of their alleged Jewish origins. In Somali, Yabir means Hebrew. If the Yabir practiced Judaism in the past, they have not done so for at least 800 years. In 2000, the Sultan of the Jews, Ahmed Jami Hersi, mentioned to a reporter that he didn't know anything about Judaism. He was a practicing Muslim. Even if given the opportunity, few would immigrate to Israel or convert to Islam. This doesn't lessen the scorn that other Somalis heap on that tribe. So it's basically saying that these people, when you uncover the layers and look at it anthropologically, you can see that they come from an ancient Israelite stock. Can we go to the next slide?
Okay.
So what we see here with the dispersion is the term falasha, falafa, and when we're looking at a lot of these texts, sometimes I'm having an issue because I really can't see because it's small. I should have kind of put it in my commentary notes and blew it up, and I can read it. But another thing is a lot of these texts be having F where S's are at and F where T's, things like that. So we see the translation is basically falasha, falafa, falada. It's several other derivations from that name, but we're just looking at this one for the time present. And let's see what we have here. Now, the Falada Umbro resided in Western Africa and settled in the Blue Nile in the beginning of the 1950s. They were permitted by the indigenous tribes to use the natural resources. The Falada Umburu actually consists of several ethnic groups which have their own local language, religion, and native homeland. Originally from Western African countries, including Mali, Mauritania, Cameroon, and Nigeria, Falada herders breed a species of cow that is known for its big horns. So these are just situations that's explaining where these Falada Umburu come from. They say they resided in West Africa and settled in the Blue Nile in the 1950s. So this kind of sounds like somebody being somewhere, the Falasha, for a while and returning back to their homeland. So we continue with the next slide. And this is just instances where we see falasha, falada, these different terms. This is the journal of an expedition to explore the course and termination of the Niger. It's basically a diary. July 15th, Faladas. And this is what it said. It is said have pillaged and burnt the city of Ngarki and taken Kulu, so that the road to Bozi is also for the present denied us. These setters up and pullers down of kings, for some reason are offended. So he's saying these Faladas, which when we read earlier, they was given a derogatory term as rebels, and falasha basically mean a wanderer. He's saying that these peoples are setter ups and puller down of kings. For some reason, they offended. We go to the next part. It says, page 278. And I'm going to the second sentence. Several revolutions have already taken place in Nufa through the instrumentality of these ambitious fuladas, which have all terminated in the confusion of the greater part of that distracted country. So, like I said, we see the derogatory name falasa refers to a community, and it is based on the evidence that I'm looking at, that I'm presenting, that this is the community of those exiled Ethiopian Jews, or from that kingdom of Simeon that was forced to migrate in a westward fashion. So we see right here, it says the Emitic. Oh, let me bring it down. Kind of got it. So basically it's saying that in Emitic, as I was saying, Falasha means outsider, exile. And that was the name that was given to them. So if we can, let's go to that next slide. And basically, this is just the repeating of the Yibir, the Hebrew of Somali, and it's saying that it's basically the Yibir in Somali is one of the few known Muslim communities worldwide that maintains their Jewish descent. The community is small, tightly knitted, numbering not more than 30,000. The name Yibir, as I also said, pronounced Yibru and Yahar, simply means Hebrew. Second paragraph basically saying the same thing is furthermore, and this is coming, I wonder if I have the source for this, because this is all source material. And I can't really see it because I got it. Give me 1 second. But if you can, Elder, read that for him while I fix my screen right quick.
Okay, you want me to start at the top or the second paragraph? The top.
Yeah.
The Yibir in Somalia is one of the few known Muslim communities worldwide that maintains Jewish descent. The community is small and tightly knitted, numbering not more than 30,000. The name Yibir or Yibir, also pronounced Yibro or Yahar, simply means Hebrews. Despite the wide array of research on African communities of Jewish descent, the Yibir have received minimum interest from academics. No significant studies have been conducted on the group, making the Yibir one of the most forgotten world populations for at least 8 centuries. The Yibir have lived amongst the pastoralist populations of northern Somalia. There, the populations are divided into different clan groupings. A strict caste system traditionally organizes the clans into a fixed hierarchy of noble to inferior. Being one of the lowest castes, the Yibir constitute one of the poorest populations in Somalia, if not the poorest. Want me to continue?
Yeah, you go to the next slide.
Go to the next slide.
Is that everything right there?
That's that first. No, that's just the first paragraph. Do you want me to read the whole page?
Nah, that's why I'm trying to pull it up right quick because it's pretty extensive right there.
Yeah, I can. I mean, I can read through it if you like. It's up to you.
Nah, I'm just trying to get control of how I'm going.
Okay.
It zoomed all in my face on me.
Okay. So, I can go to the next slide if you want.
Yeah, just move to the next slide right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
You want me to read from the top?
Hold on. Let's see. Let me see where you at. That's the next slide.
Let
me see. Now go to the next slide after that one.
Go to the next slide after that one. Okay.
Yeah.
Manuscript C.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
I got it. So, Khan Salak. So, manuscript C of the Tarak El Fatas describes a community called the Bani Israel that in 1402 existed in Tidarma, possessed 300 wells, and had 7 leaders, which we see listed here. It also stated that they had an army of 1,500 men. Other sources say that other Jewish communities in the region were formed by migrations from Morocco, Egypt, and Portugal. So what we see here is basically letting it be known that they say they had a Jewish community in this region that we see on the map that's circled right here. And that's according to the Tariq El Fatash. And let's go to the next slide. Now we have also the Tariq El Sudan, also the Tariq Es Sudan, which is the history of the Sudan, is a West African chronicle written in Arabic around 1655. And they say it provides the single most important primary source for the history of the Songhai Empire. So we see here, this is what it says. The 7th century chronicle provides an early history of Songhai by oral tradition. The chronicle reports that the legendary founder of the dynasty, Zai el-Yaman, also called Dayaman el-Yaman, he from above Yemen, originally came from Yemen and settled in the town of Kuyika, Mali, which we see circled. That town is to believe had been near the modern village of Bentiya. So we see here that this is a primary source talking about an Israelite or Jewish kingdom in this region that's circled on this map. And we see what we're always talking about, that migration in an west to east pattern. Can we go to the next slide? So we see here, this is an individual by the name of Thomas Bowditch, and we see he wrote several books, things, whatever. Now it says this: the Falatas, again, the Falashas, inhabiting Agba were all born and bred in that town. Their ancestors settled in the country at so remote a period that although we made inquiries respecting it, our questions were unavailing. So let's go down, because it's interesting how he speaks, because this is 1800. This is like the last gas of slavery. They basically took all of the people out of it. So he's saying they have no ambition to join their more restless and enterprising countrymen who have made themselves masters of Alu and Raqqa. Look what it says. Indeed, they have kept themselves apart and distinct from all. They have retained the language of their fathers and the simplicity of their manners, and their existence glides serenely and happily away. So we go to the last one. They are on the best possible terms with their neighbors, like the Falatas at Boho, and by them they are held in great respect. So this individual here, he's not straight out saying that they're Jews, because like I say, this is they destroyed this area basically as far as culture or a continuation of an old tradition. They took it all out. So, but what he does see, he sees these people as being separate and distinct and set apart from the other neighboring tribes and clans. Next slide. Now, this is his map that he produced that's on the left. And these are all the towns. And I remember one time speaking with you, Elder, that I mentioned the town Yara. And that town Yara is at the top. And this is the area where he was at on the right when you look at the arrows at that map on the right. So basically, this is the same area, and you're going to see that same theme and that same area each time we talk. Matter of fact, if you go to that next slide, you can see what I'm talking about. Now, when you look at that slide, see, that's where it started at in Ethiopia, basically, and it moved. It moved to Chad, and it moved to this region that we just talked about. And in the end, we see where it's going to end up. And these is basically the time periods where we see this migration. Not saying that this is the only one or it's a continual one, but this is just how it proceeded, because Israelites found Israelites, Israelite found pagans that were Israelites, so it's just an amalgamation or copious, scenarios that involve with how the Yuhadin got in West Africa. Can we go to the next slide? So it's not that many more. So, appreciate everybody listening and, taking in the information. Appreciate Elder Yara, my brother, and the other tank members that's on. So we're going to keep going. So we see that this map right here is that same area that I'm speaking about. And that map that's in the middle, that's an interesting area, because this is where he's saying the Jews are. And if we continue with the next slide, we're going to see what that area specifically is. That's the same area that we're looking at. And that source is from that's the book, Travels into the Inland Parts of Africa. And we see on page 8, and I'm going to read. It says, in the whole land of Lamlim, there are but 2 small cities, or as it were villages, and those are Mel and Dao, situated at the distance of 4 days' journey from each other. Their inhabitants, as people of those parts relate, are Jews, and indeed most of them unbelieving and ignorant. When any of all the inhabitants of the kingdom of Lamlim comes to have the use of his reason, he is burnt in the face and temples. If you're listening, Yara, go to that first, the very first slide, and I'm gonna reread that sentence.
The very first one.
The very first one.
That you opened up with.
Right, Khan.
Okay. Go back up here.
So I'm gonna read. No, the very first one, the one you just left.
Okay, there.
Khan, and I'm gonna reread this. Look at this, the arrow. This is the area. Now it says, when any of all the inhabitants of the kingdom of Lamlim comes to have the use of his reason, he is burnt in the face and temples. This they do for a token among themselves. All their countries and whole dominions is near a certain river flowing into the Nile. It is not known that there is any inhabited place beyond this kingdom. So these people are indigenous, according to their story, beyond the kingdom of Limlim to the south. That kingdom joins on the west to Mizara, on the east to Venera, on the north to Ghana, and on the south with the desert. And its people use a different language from those of Mizra and Ghana, between Barifra or Barasa, above mentioned, and Ghana to the east, is a journey of 12 days. It lies in the midway which leads to the city Salah and Takur. Likewise, from the city Biafra to that city is computed a distance of 12 days journey, and that city is on the north of Barifa or Barasa. Next slide.
Khan, you want me to go back down?
Oh, yeah, my fault. Yeah, Khan.
It's okay. I'm just gonna get down to what slide were you on? I think you.
I was on 37.
37. Let's get it.
Khan.
All right.
Right there. So we see this that same area where is the kingdom of Lamlim. And that's been that area that was spoken about throughout the whole procession of this history of the Jews or the Yuhadim or the Israelites in West Africa. Next slide. And this is all those people that come from that area. So we see we got the Gurma people, we got the Igbo people, the Akan, the Iwe. All these people come from that area. And when I say the Falada or the Falashas, I'm saying that in all humility, because I'm not going to go to a Falasha or a person from the Igbo or the Agana people and tell them the Falada people or Falasha people. I'm not, but in all humility, that's what I come to the conclusion, that the Faladas or the Falashas. And even with that not being the case, the history is still there. So if you can, we go to that next slide. Now, these are all the tribes that's in that area. And this is a blow up of that map. And I don't know if we can see that, or let me see if I have a way to read that, because when you read that, you see it says Lamlim. And
this map here,
right there where your arrow, they have some text that's right there.
Yeah, it's right there. It's visible.
Right. And if you see, I think they have the city Yara right there to the bottom of it. So it's all consistent with the story. And with that, that's basically the demonstration or presentation I had. Appreciate everybody out there for their time, and all praise to the Most High.
All praise to the Most High, man. For this information, SAR Gideon Yisrael brought out this evening. And we're going to continue to bring you guys this type of information, showing that our people have a history, that we have a culture, and that what we're reading and what we're claiming and what we understand to know that is our ancestry. and that as a African people, as a Black people, as an Israelite people, as a Hebrew people, we can actually take pride in reclaiming Africa. We're not, the Torah was not devoid. The understanding of the Most High was not devoid in these lands and among these people. And we can clearly identify these Israelites in the land of Africa, in West Africa, in South Africa, in North Africa, in Central Africa. We are present in the land. We are important to the land. We cultivated the land. We were among the indigenous people of that land. And after thousands of years being in that land, some of us are indigenous of that land. And so this is what we have to get right, is the narrative of our presence in Africa, on the continent of Africa. We had kingdoms and communities. We were written about extensively. So for those who say there's no evidence of you Israelites in West Africa pre-colonial times, for those who say there's no history of Africans, of Hebrew Israelites in Africa in south of the Sahara, or Sudan, or in North Africa, in Ethiopia, or in places like Mali and Timbuktu and Senegal. I laid it out clearly this evening. We had some technical difficulties, so I really want to bring Art back to really go through this information again, so it can be a lot smoother, because we had some technical difficulties. These media platforms, sometimes they get crazy. But I brought out some very powerful and pertinent information. We're going to be premiering this again throughout the week, so that those who are not able to join us for the live panel, for the live discussion, for the live teaching and lesson on this, that they'll be able to see it. This is powerful information here. And we're not making a claim. This is evidence. Ak established that. He established facts. He established that the information that he's presenting is true. We're not simply making claims that we are the people of their land, or that Israelites were in Africa. No, we're providing and we're showing and proving that we were in the lands of Africa, that our people were inhabitants of these lands in Africa, that we were on the west coast of Africa, in the rice coast, the windward coast of West Africa, during the time of the transatlantic slave trade, and that we were those people. We were mixed among those people, taken to Barbados, taken into Sierra Leone, taken to the Americas.
God.
This information is pertinent and strong, and we're taking all of the smoke on it. We're taking all of the smoke on it. Y'all see the thumbnails: Garfield, Dagger Squad, MBK, Rob Bourne. Those of you who continue to push this false narrative that we were not present in Africa, north, south, east, and west. And the thing about it is, I don't believe in this presentation, family didn't even quote one scripture. He clearly showed you extra biblical sources, not claims, but eyewitness accounts for people who had no motive to claim that these people were the Jews. They had no motive for it. There was no more. You didn't get any more money from a slave from the Zulu tribe, or a slave from a Hebrew Israelite tribe in Africa. So identity these people as Jews there was no not more lucrative. A slave was a slave. The slave was a slave. So we clearly see that they had no reason to write this in their history, to identify these people as Black Jews in Africa. And some of them, our ancestors, according to their own accounts, their own oral traditions, let us know that they go back beyond even when the Israelites went into the land of Canaan. They go all the way back to Shem, all the way back to Yaakub, or Jacob.
And if I could say one thing real quick, y'all, real fast,
Absolutely.
is that, you know, what I want to be known to all our brothers, you know, is that when I'm looking at this picture, I'm looking at the beauty in our paganism. You see what I'm saying? Because, you know, these things, you know, became corrupted because it's told that we are not to make markings in our flesh, but the fact still remains they did it, and they were Israelites who did it. So you know, like I said, man, I see beauty in this, and I just want, once again, I thank you for providing that platform. You know, the tanks on the ground. You know, we here. Shout out to everybody listening. All praise to the Most High. Name of Yahshua HaMashiach. You know, and yeah, that's what it is.
That's what it is. So again, shout out to Vinny D. Davis in the chat, still with us. He said, good presentation, bro. Panel study. All praises to the Most High. We appreciate you for tuning in. Shout out to
no doubt. Shout out Vinny. Shout out panel.
Yeah, shout out to Gideon
Appreciate it.
Yashar, Commanding General Yashar, for chiming in, getting in the chat. Appreciate your presence as always, family. I believe the next segment of this series that we're doing, we started with a preliminary last night. Gideon brought in this great information, some information that I didn't know. We're going to put it all together, but we're going to do a third presentation on this subject, on this title. And I believe General Yashar is going to be bringing out his information. And he has some powerful information on the science, what we're calling the science of Israel in Africa. And we're going to show and prove. And again, like we're taking all the smoke on this. We're taking all the smoke on this because we have a preponderance of evidence, an overwhelming plethora of sources, of various sources that proves the scripture and proves what we're saying. This is not claims we're making. This is evidence. First-hand accounts. Anthropology. Sociology. Geography. These are the sciences that show and prove and confirm what the scriptures tell us. So again, we're going to be bringing out more of this information. Shout out to Orthodox Moore, who came in yesterday and brought in some powerful information. And so be looking for more of these type lessons. We're elevating the conversation. We're elevating the topics that we're dealing with. Some are old, but we're giving you new information. New information. Because some of this information in here, we've never heard argued in all of Israel. And so we're going to be bringing this information out. And again, we're approaching the 11 o'clock hour or Central Standard Time, or the top of the hour. And again, shout out to SAR, our General Gideon Yisrael, for a very, very powerful presentation. Like I said, we had some technical difficulties, but you brought it home. You hit a home run on it, and we're gonna have to run this one again. We're gonna have to run this one again.
No doubt. Definitely shout you out too. Appreciate it, man. And you definitely been the leader of this tank, and I appreciate everything you've been laying down for us.
Man, all praises to the Most High, man. Man, we're humble as always. And just to get decency and order, but in any event, we all brothers. There's no big I's and little U's among the tanks. You know what I'm saying? We not, it's ain't all, we, ain't just, it's chiefs and Indians. You know what I'm saying? It's a round table. It's a round table.
Well, it's all situational, man. But you lead, you provide the platform, you provide the way. People be foolish not to follow. You feel me? So,
Yeah.
we all have our situations and our time to lead and to follow. So, you definitely are the one that's the at the head of this. So definitely appreciate it.
All praise to the Most High. Yeah. So again, man, definitely, again, we at the top of the hour, so we're gonna close this thing out. And hey, peace and blessings to those who are listening. Peace and blessings to those who will hear this. May this be edifying for you in your walk. Strengthen your faith that Yahweh is the Most High God of all nations, and also that strengthen your faith and your trust in the authority that His Son Yahushua is giving us to continue this fight. So we're definitely going to be getting back with you, family. We got some other lessons coming up. We got some things that we gotta really get into and share with you and share with the people. A lot of people are asking about, say, hey, who are these new kids on the block? We're soldiers of the Most High. So we got to always remember, everybody couldn't go over into the promised land. Even though you had those that came out of ancient Egypt, that came out of Kemet after being oppressed by the Assyrians. You see what I'm saying? You still had that time of wandering and that time of place where they all couldn't go over. But it was the young ones, it was the new kids on the block that brought us on to the promised land. So our war machine is here. We're growing, we're getting stronger, we're growing in knowledge, and we're growing in faith. And again, most importantly, as well, we're a think tank. We're a think tank. So man, shout out to y'all war machine, shout out to my family. Love y'all. Peace and blessings. We out.
All praise the Most High.
All praise to the Most High. Shalom.